The Nazis came to power and immediately it changed. We were trapped. It was a slow strangulation of Jewish life. You couldn't go to a cinema, you couldn't go to a theater, you couldn't go anywhere. Juden unerwünscht. That was the Jews not wanted here. It was getting more and more and more and more difficult until it came to Kristallnacht.
After Kristallnacht, they burnt, of course, my school, which was, because there was a synagogue attached, it was a Jewish school. And then I saw what happened because the results of Kristallnacht were still around. There were stores and the glass was still on the ground and all this stuff. On the 24th of July, my mom said to me, tomorrow you're going to go by train. You're going to go and travel on a ship. You're going to another country, you'll see another country.
And we could send away our 1.5-year-old baby. It would be difficult to imagine how we felt when we had to part with our only sunshine.
The tragedy of the Holocaust is not only Auschwitz and Birkenau.
We lived here somewhere, we had 2 balconies and looked down on the street. Hitler visited here and he drove through here in his open Mercedes, stood in the front next to the driver. I saw it from the balcony down there.
זה הבית שאני נולדתי ושגדלתי בו, ב-1931. הנה פה, זה השני שטוטרשטיין הראשון. זה לאמא שלי, והשני לאחותה הדודה שלי. ושניהם נספתו באושוויץ. זה עושה קצת טוויץ' בלב, אין מה לדבר. פה אני נולדתי, פה אני גדלתי עד גיל 8 כמעט.
They actually threw us out of this building. We were no longer allowed to live in this nice house on the main street. That's my father's name and information. Sigmund Billiger. Billig, of course, was my name.
Hitler came to power lawfully. His was the biggest party, and he received his nomination to be a chancellor from the president.
ב-1933 התעלה לשלטון, 3 חודשים אחרי זה היה דחו. עד 1938 היה 81 ריכוז בגרמניה.
In 1933 already, at the beginning, they boycotted and they stood outside Jewish shops. Don't buy from Jews. Germans, defend yourselves from Jews.
The Nazi regime was actually the beginning of a revolution in all fields of life. Such was the public burn by enthusiastic throngs of Germans of thousands of books. Some 100 million books were burned under the Nazi rule.
All books by Jewish authors had to be taken off the library shelves. There was a whole list of prescribed books. They had to deliver it in the park where we played. I mean, there were books by Heinrich Mann, Thomas Mann, Einstein, and I saw it. A big ceremony, and the people with great glee threw the German culture on the fire. They burned it on the fire, singing, and it became worse and worse and worse.
Once Hitler became a mighty Führer, he turned back to deal with the Jewish question. On September 1935, at the Nazi annual party convention, within just 2 days, the Nuremberg laws were announced.
Then came the Nuremberg laws. You couldn't go to a cinema, you couldn't go to a theater, you couldn't go anywhere, Juden unerwünscht. That was the Jews not wanted here.
יהודים אסור להחזיק חיי חמד בבית, לא חתולים, מה זה טוב? אסור למכור ליהודים תמרוקים, אסור שיהיה רדיו, היוצרים למסור את הרדיו. זה מקום מאוד חשוב בחיים שלי. אנחנו גרים בערך 300 מטר מפה. פה הייתי משחק, אבל היו כבר ספסלים פה בצד הזה, ועל זה כתוב נור פר יהודים. יהודים היה אסור לשבת פה רק על יד הזבל.
It was getting more and more and more and more difficult until it came to Kristallnacht. It was a slow strangulation of Jewish life. We were trapped. That was it. We were trapped. Before the Nazis, I lived normal schoolboy life. And this is the yard where we played. And when we played with the ball, I got my share of the ball, like everybody else. I was one of the boys. Then the Nazis came to power, and immediately it changed. The pupils were the children of the Nazis, and they had to go to Hitler Youth. They hit me in the street, they chased me in the schoolyard, dirty stinking Jew, and all those kind of things. And they threw me out, thrown out with the Jews, and not only the pupils, everybody in the education system, all Jews were thrown out, from the highest professor to the lowest assistant teacher. All Jews were thrown out.
אנחנו נמצאים בבית ספר שהלכתי אחרי שסופרו את הבית ספר שלי. והיה לי קצת פחד. זה כן, זה אני זוכר שאני פחדתי שאני לא אבלוט יותר מדי. אבל ראיתי שאנשים כמוני לא כל כך טוב לב, ואני נורא, איך אומרים, I shrunk. זה הבית כנסת בבית ספר שלי, ומה שנשאר מהבית ספר הזה זה החתיכת מהקיר. יש פה חלון גם שאתם רואים פה, שבחוץ זה הקיר כנראה המשותף שהיה עם הבית הזה.
We arrived in Harwich sometime in the early morning, but I don't remember berthing at the wash. The next picture that is engraved into my memory is waiting on some field and a lot of grown-ups coming and choosing kids they were supposed to take, adopt, foster, or ones that they took a fancy to. I'll always remember it. I'll probably tell it everybody I know.
Yes, I really appreciate it. And I must say it touched the chord.
War Ihnen da klar, irgendwie, dass Sie Ihre Mutter nie wiedersehen?
Nein.
Wann haben Sie realisiert, dass Sie Ihre Mutter nie wiedersehen?
Ich glaube, das war eine langsame Sache, dass ich war so beschäftigt, mein Leben zu machen. Und ich war in ein fremdes Land mit fremden Leuten. Das ist nicht so einfach. Und am Ende, wenn ich war schon vielleicht 10 Jahre, 12 Jahre, dann wusste ich schon, dass Familie habe ich nicht mehr.
Meine Familie ist ja mein größtes Hab und Gut. Wenn ich meine Eltern nicht wiedersehen würde, würde mich das wirklich bedrücken. Ich glaube, ein Teil meines Herzens würde dann
Bestimmt, bestimmt.
Ich hätte Angst, ich wüsste nicht, was mit mir passiert und das ist einfach alles schrecklich.
In 1938, an incited mob stormed the streets of Germany and Austria, burning synagogues, bursting into Jewish stores and homes. The real first massive pogrom in Nazi Germany. It lasted less than 2 days, but the outcome was horrendous. Almost 100 Jews were murdered and thousands were sent to concentration camps. It was the turning point that set the foundation, marking the end of Jewish life in Nazi Germany.
Here stood the synagogue, a very large cathedral-like. The morning of the Kristallnacht, I didn't know from this, we didn't know. I left where I lived and I walked like every day to the synagogue to go to my lessons, and on the road, you already saw there was people and commotion. The fire engines were there, as they were here probably where we are standing, to cool down neighboring property. It shouldn't catch fire.
אני ראיתי את ההרס, ראיתי את החנות פה עם הקצב והקהל, והחנות ששברו ממול. קצת הלאה היה החנות של כלי כתיבה, ולא שברו את החנות, כי זה היה שייך לזוג מעורב. אבל כותבו פה על המדריכה שהחנות הזה שייך לחזיר יהודי שנשוי לחזירה נוצריה גרמניה. אני זוכר ברור לגמרי את הדבר הזה.
As long as I live, I will never forget this day. Returning to our flat, we found great disorder, chairs broken, divans slit open, feathers flying around. We learned that they took a great number of Jews during this pogrom, and they could be shot at any moment. That is German culture for you. The day after Kristallnacht, my father was sent to Buchenwald.
My mother said, "Stay where you are, they've just taken your father." So on the 28th of October 1938, my father was in a forceful deportation to the Polish border. My father wrote to my uncle, he also wrote to me. He went to the Warsaw Ghetto. He wrote various letters and said the times were very tough, very bad. We have a date on which he succumbed. Yeah, das war mein Vaters Vater, mein Großvater. Ein sehr Bild. Und hier ist ein Stein mit allen Namen von denen, die hier umgekommen sind. Sigmund Billet, Schmiel Billet, Ernst.
Were taken away.
Yeah.
Rosa went away to Theresienstadt, right?
He died a few months before I was born, and I'm named after him. Here, and his son went to Warsaw. We know this family.
The worldwide shock over the events of the Kristallnacht evoked a stormy reaction. Under the pressure of public opinion, the British government decided to bring into Britain children under danger. 12,000 children, most of them Jewish, from German territories were transferred to Britain.
some hope came along. We heard about children's transport possibilities to England, and we could send away our 1.5-year-old baby. It would be difficult to imagine how we felt when we had to part with our only sunshine in these otherwise morbid surroundings. For the sake of the child, we decided on sending him. We knew he would not suffer anymore. Whatever would happen to us, we would be free to work on our escape in our aim to join our child. I did not even cry when I saw him. I didn't even cry when I saw him looking out at the train window. Pressing his face to the window pane. And only when I walked home with my husband, arm in arm, pushing the pram, the empty pram, I realized what it meant to both of us.
The little ones, little 3, Mommy, 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 I love you. And they thought they're being punished. They are in a train and Mommy's outside and they didn't know what's happening to them. One parent couldn't bear it and took the child back out of the window.
התחנה שאני נסעתי בתור קינדרטרנספורט, זו מהתחנה הזאת. אני יודע שאני לא בכיתי או לא הייתי עצוב, כי הבטיחו לי רכבת, האונייה, מדינה אחרת. עלינו במדרגות, ואז אני נכנסתי לרכבת והלכתי וישבתי בקרון. ואני ישבתי שם על יד חלון גדול, בפינה למטה, בשביל זה אמא שלי לא ראה, זה היו שם הבנים של הנוער המבוגר. אני ראיתי אותה והיא לא ראתה אותי. אז זה המבט האחרון שלי.
זו הפעם האחרונה שאתה רואה את אמא בתחנת רכבת?
כן. אני יודע היום בדיוק איזה טרנספורט זה היה, באיזה תאריך זה נסע, אני יודע שהיא לא קיבלה מספר. 140 נשים ממספר למספר, לקחו לעבודה ביתר מהרכבת ישר להשמדה. אני הייתי באושוויץ, ראיתי את כל הזוועות, והייתי קר לגמרי. לא השפיע עליי באמוציונלית, אני לא יודע למה. הלכתי להקיף שמה, אז הגברת שאלה אותו, מה השם בזה? והיא הלכה, חזרה בחזרה אחרי 5 דקות עם 2 פתקאות שמה, אני נשברתי. 2 פתקאות, זה מה נשאר מבן אדם? פתקה.
I'm looking at that, I was crying. Because we were like that.
Yeah.
We were like that. It's a very emotional moment to stand at this kind of monument depicting our life. I remember well because I was 15 and a half when I was one of those children. And we left. And parents were at the railway station and said goodbye, and it was a month before war broke out. And one didn't know if one sees one's parents again. And there we went onto the train, standing there, children like this. I can't imagine when the train pulled out and we waved. We all got to the windows trying to wave. What the parents were thinking of, they must have broken down.
July 14th, 1939. They put me in a pram. They took me to the station and put me into the arms of a stranger, the age of 1 year. 1 year and 7 months. Who knows what was going on in their minds, knowing what was happening with the atmosphere of the Germans, the Nazis, all the horrible things that were happening around them. But they decided to do that in my interest. They put me in the hands of a stranger. They turned round, walked home. My mother said they pushed. They pushed an empty carrier home. Who knows what went through their minds.
My mother took me to the train. I was 15 and a half, and having lived through the Nazi period for 7 years, I was aware why I was traveling. It was very traumatic. We knew the war was coming. There was no doubt at all that this was a one-way journey. The train pulled out and we went to the window waving, and it was a very, very emotional moment. That was the last time many of our children ever saw their parents again. We went towards Holland, and then we got to the border. In some cases, when the Nazis came on board to check out the luggage, in my case, it was very smooth. They didn't open my case as far as I remember. And they told us, now you are over the border. I suppose I have tears in my eyes when I think of the emotion of being free in Holland.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have just passed the border from Germany to Holland.
Wow! This is an amazing feeling, terrific feeling. Thank God for that we got out. Thank God we got out and we're in Holland.
I was smaller than Wouter, but I was big enough that something had happened. And I remember the first thing that happened when we crossed the border was all the older kids of 17, 16 cheering and clapping and really rejoicing. And I also remember the Dutch women who came on the train on the first station and bought us sandwiches and milk. Took care of us.
I left on the 25th of July 1939 and went on the night boat and arrived in Harwich on the 26th of July.
And that means I was on the same train that Wouter was on.
And you just know.
And only just now we met the first time.
George and I, as we discovered, left Germany on the same day, so we would have arrived in England on the same day. But I would imagine that the train from Berlin with George and the train from Karlsruhe were come from different directions, and at one point perhaps they were coupled, and then we came together. We must have been on the same boat. That's for sure. If you arrived on the 26th of July in England, then you were on the same night boat that I was on.
Wow! That's amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Personally, for me, it's an experience I don't think I'll forget. I don't know how long I can remember it, because I'm 92, but anyway, whatever's left, that's what I'm going to remember.
We know it's not an easy journey, but we call this film a journey of hope. And you give a lot of hope to the people of Israel, to the Jewish people, and to the entire world. Your story of survival, being children, being refugees on your own, creating life, creating families, building the state of Israel, is something that generation to come will learn and appreciate and remember.
we went on board. On the one hand, you were very, very sad, and it was very, very traumatic, and you heard the little children crying. And then on the other hand, of course, it was a big journey into another country, and that was some kind of peculiar excitement mixed with a trauma.
I know it was dark, and honestly, I don't know how I got there, but I remember boarding the ship, and I remember the cabin, and I can draw it to you as if I was there today. When we came to England, I was supposed to be, I was picked up by some distant relative. I got to the family, and I started school, didn't understand very much, and then the war broke out, and all the schools in London were evacuated. That included me. That means I was first a refugee, and 6 weeks later I was an evacuee. There's a big difference. There was nobody left in Germany, no family. Now the plan was that I should get to America to my uncle, my mother's brother. And I went there. I arrived in Israel in 1949. I spent 2.5 years in the Navy. I did reserve duty until the age of 54. I had combat stripes for 5 wars.
I was in a home which was a home for small children, up to 10 children, set up by a wealthy, very generous English gentleman. And I was in a home there for about 3 years until August 1942. My parents, both of them, visited me from time to time, and they took me out in about in August 1942. And then that was the beginning of a better life.
Have it.
Wow, look at this.
This is the end.
On this side.
This is the end. This we're fully out, finished England.
Amazing.
And we are here.
We're back.
We're back. It's so long later, and we're reliving it, and thank God that we made it and that we're here.
We closed the circle.
And that much of the living have thought of the idea to bring us to relive this.
And it's something that's going to be here for not only for us, but for our children and our grandchildren and for future generations.
I hope the world will learn. So far we live in a topsy-turvy world, but I hope that the world will learn that
I'm not optimistic
about the story. We have to be an optimist.
I never considered myself a Holocaust survivor. And here am I, for instance, who always had something to eat and always had a place to stay, and I never had any problems as far as physically things are concerned, but I became an orphan. That makes me also a Holocaust survivor. The tragedy of the Holocaust is not only Auschwitz and Birkenau. It means in all its facets the whole Jewish community.
Having been separated from my parents for a while I was an infant child, must have had some effect on me, which has stayed with me over all the years.
It is my view that you are a Holocaust survivor. Every Jew today is a Holocaust survivor.
The Kindertransport was never talked about as it should have been, because it was outside all the other stuff like the camps and the atrocities and everything. But it's still a part of history.
This is what people know about Kinder. They don't know about this. That's why this trip is particularly important.
Liverpool Street being the last stop in that long journey to safety.
Liverpool Street Station played a very large part because every transport, without exception, came through Liverpool Street Station. Today, even emotional to relive it, to be here, where our new life started.
It's a very exciting and emotional moment for us, for me, and I am very grateful to everybody who has organized it because it's really an unforgettable occasion.
You stand for us as the ultimate inspiration of how to transform darkness into light, and how we can ultimately guarantee that the forces of light in this world will triumph over the forces of darkness and peace will prevail. אל מלא רחמים, שכן במרומים.
משכן השמר עבור, ויצמח פרקוני ומשפחת משפחי בחייכון ובאון ובחיים לכל בית ישראל, לעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמור אמן.
March of the Living tells the story of the survivors. March of the Living teaches the next generation. 10,000 children came here after Kristallnacht, the night of broken glass, a night which changed the policy, a night which really almost defined how the final solution would begin and go on to. So it's not only a turning point in history, but it's a massively important part for education. This is a really important part of the story. When you think about refugees all over the world, it is immensely important to tell this story.
Most important, I have to thank the parents who they sent us away knowing they will never see each other again. And for that they needed a lot of courage and a lot of love.
I am consider myself the luckiest guy in the world. We were saved from the Holocaust. We were saved from the horrible things happening in Germany. And then I was in this hostel for about 3 years. And then I was reunited with my parents, and I grew up with them.
Which is a true miracle.
Which was...
Watching you play in New York.
You can now understand your mother's decision much better?
No, because it's incomprehensible. It's against all motherly instincts. I admire, but I can't understand, and I never will.
אם היית יכול להגיד לה דבר אחד אחרון, מה היית אומר לה?
הייתי אומר תודה. תודה בזה שהצילה אותי.